Welcome to another exciting episode of Caribbean Edge. My name is Dawn Wilson.
My name is Cheryl Ann Marshall.
My name is Kishi Martin. The guest.
Our honorable guest,
Yes.
Kishi. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm Fabian Lyon. Nice of you to join us this evening.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay. And we are going now into the Caribbean Edge news, starting off with Azalea Banks calls on Cardi B to speak out against Dominican Republic's alleged ethnic cleansing of Haitians. So once again, Azalea Banks, never one to shy away from controversy, has called on Cardi B, who is of Dominican descent, to speak out against what allegedly is going on. Also, Shaggy wins the second Grammy Award.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to Shaggy.
Congratulations.
In collaboration with Sting, and they collaborated to win the Best Reggae Album. Also interesting, a Dominique Roll of Bahamian Turk and Caicos descent, a fine arts photographer, was featured recently in Italia Vogue, so that's a big accomplishment for Dominique Roll.
Huge.
So
Huge.
some interesting
Yeah.
tidbits there throughout the Caribbean.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for tonight's news, Fabian. Well, tonight's episode is about sex, social health, accountability, breaking barriers, confronting homophobia, challenging the social norms, discrimination. So we're about to have some really deep talk. So Kishi, tell us about yourself. What do you do? Where are you from?
All right. Well, hello everybody. This is my first time on the Caribbean Edge. I appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in. These people are awesome. So please support them. Always support them. But a little bit about me. I'm 30 years old. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. My mother's from Kingston, Jamaica, and my father's from Birmingham, England. And I am a sexual health educator. For the last 11 years, I've dedicated my life to teaching the South Florida community about sexual health, and not just the act of sex, but sexuality, consent, boundaries, also the attitudes around sex, and doing my best to normalize the conversations around sex, age-appropriate education, access to affordable health care. I've done a lot of mentoring. I've done tons of internships. I've done a lot of volunteering, whether it be Planned Parenthood or SunServe. I work for all people, and my biggest hope is that we talk about sex and sexuality factually, comfortably, and that it's inclusive and healthy and something that we can all benefit from.
Okay. So I have the pleasure of knowing your mom, and she's very proud of you. I saw her last week.
I'm proud of her too. Yeah.
Definitely, you have a strong family and your sister as well. So
Yes.
we definitely welcome you to the Caribbean Edge.
Thank you.
I've wanted to have you on this show for quite some time.
Yeah.
I think your most recent post is what struck us, and I said, okay, now is the time to get Kishi. And it was with the attack against the Empire Star. Some people, there's some controversy around it, whether it's a alleged attack or not.
Yeah.
I personally believe he was attacked.
Me too.
However, there's comments about it, whether he was or not. At the end of the day, his claim is that he was attacked. Noose around his neck, a lot of gay slurs. And so tell us why you made that post. How do you feel about that particular situation?
So I first just want to say Jussie Smollett is an inspiration to me. I've had the pleasure of meeting him.
Wow.
He and I have so much in common. We're both really big Janet Jackson fans. He's multi-talented. I mean, he's a singer, he's a dancer. His family, they're all actors and actresses. I'm sure you all have seen, like Eve's Bayou, which is one of my favorite movies. His sister Journey is so talented. I love her. And you know, I've had the pleasure of meeting him, and a lot of people of color who are in the LGBT community look up to him, because up till the last decade or so, when you talk about LGBT in the media, who do you usually see? You usually see gay white men who are flamboyant. There's not a lot of representation and diversity. As we know, homophobia is something that is in every culture. It's everywhere. It's worldwide. There's not, in my opinion, there's not one culture that's more homophobic than the other. But when I heard the news, I honestly wasn't surprised that it happened. I was just surprised who it happened to,
right.
because statistically speaking and factually speaking, we already know all over the world in every culture, people who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender, they're more likely to be verbally or physically attacked. And someone who is both queer and a person of color, it's twice as likely that crimes are going to happen to them. As a matter of fact, in terms of who gets the most, who's more likely to get murdered, actually, is Black transgender women. They're the most likely to be murdered. They're more likely to be outed or disowned by their family.
So, I want to play devil's advocate for a little bit, because you mentioned that not all cultures experience this. Rumor has it that in the Caribbean, especially Jamaicans, that we are more homophobic than any other country, any other Caribbean nation. And we have certain laws in Jamaica, the Buggery Law, that was from the British descent as well. I believe since 1864, somewhere there.
Yeah.
So those laws still exist to this day in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Trinidad, I believe, in about April 2018, they changed their laws, but it is a crime punishable up to 10 years in jail.
Yeah.
So Jamaica is known for homophobic. We have prime ministers, you know, which are the leaders of our countries, that have pretty much said, yeah, you know, the Honorable Bruce Golding has come out and said, not in my cabinet when asked. He's okay with it, but I'm sure everyone, Caribbean and non-Caribbean, has probably watched those interviews, and if you haven't, you can obviously, the internet is there to research it. But he said, yeah, not in my cabinet would he have a homosexual portion.
Openly.
Yeah, exactly. Openly, right?
There's a difference between open and closeted, and a lot of people are closeted out of survival, out of safety, out of fear. So
especially
you can sit here and say, oh, not in my cabinet, but gay people have been a part of society, a part of the world since the beginning of time. It's not going away. Right. And you can sit there and verbally and openly speak out against something, but that's not something you have control over. You can be a politician and you can implement policies to run a better country, run a better state, but you can't police people's love and what they do with their bodies and what they do in their bedrooms. It's not your business.
And so, growing up in Jamaica, like I know, you know, and I don't want to single out the Honorable Bruce Golding alone, because our current Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, has been asked the same question. He's not come out either way. He just says he'll support the country's views, and as times change, Portia Simpson, the ex-Prime Minister, she's come out and she's welcomed it in her cabinet when asked the same question. If we think about ourselves as people from the Caribbean or Caribbean descent, we're in a unique situation because we no longer live in Jamaica, where I'm sure it's a lot stronger, in my opinion, versus living in America. So I want to ask everyone, what's your thoughts on that? Do you think living in America has made us more conscious, more aware, more loving, more open towards these discussions than if we were back in our hometowns? Cheryl Ann. Real talk.
Real talk, because I have a very close friend who confided in me about his sexual preferences. He's gay, and it's so bad in Trinidad. This was a few years ago. It's so bad in Trinidad. It's so not accepted in Trinidad that he said to me that he considered suicide.
Yeah.
And that's the reality that a lot of
It
us face.
killed me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It broke my heart into pieces. And he said to me that his mother could not begin to accept it. His mother basically, she subjected it as something, as a vice and a choice, as opposed to something that he was born wanting, needing, loving. And I was appalled. I was totally appalled. I was like, wow, the ignorance is appalling. It's appalling.
So in this day and age, I'm going to ask you this, all of us, you know, we have kids, not you, Kishi, not yet anyway. Your kids come to you and they ask, they say this, because at some point you did that, right? So we want to know more about that. But what is it like, the courage that it takes your kid to come to you and say this to you? What do you believe you would do if they came to you and say...
Complete acceptance.
Okay.
Complete acceptance. It's my children.
Yeah.
I brought this child into the world. I carried this child for 9 months. How could I not love what he loves? How could I not adore what he adores? How could I not support what he supports? That's a no-brainer to me. It's a no-brainer. I read on social media where this guy said today, actually, that he would be so ashamed if his children came out, one of his children came out and basically admitted that he was gay.
But do you realize a lot of people share that though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's socially acceptable to speak out against something that society, that law, that religion has said is wrong. Because in the state of Florida, if you're transgender or if you're gay, you can actually be fired and you can be denied housing.
Oh my God.
Religion has come out and said all of these horrible things about the LGBT community for years, yet religion was also the same thing that was used to justify slavery. So it's always interesting how people use things to
for their
benefit for their convenience, for their agenda. And I'm not a religious person. I'm very spiritual, and I respect people's religious choices. But when it comes down to it, this is discrimination, period. If this was racism, we would all say this is wrong. So why is racism any different than homophobia? It's hurtful. And people, when they are rejected from their parents, they are more likely to kill themselves because parents are the first teacher. They're generally that first source of support. And to not have that support, I mean, the world can be against you, but like when your family's against you, that's betrayal. And people have killed themselves.
If your family can't support you, then how would strangers support you?
Very sad.
So, and I want to get your thoughts on that, Fabian. What if your kids came to you and said, "Hey, mom, hey, dad, I'm different than what people consider the norm. I'm gay. I'm a lesbian."
I think one of the most overrated things for me is what consenting adults do in the bedroom. I don't care if they're consenting. That's just my opinion, though. It's my take, and as long as they're consenting, what they choose to do, that's all that matters.
Consent is everything.
Consent is
Consent
everything.
is everything.
What they do, I really don't know, whether it's a
Consent is
co-worker
everything.
or a peer or whatever the case might be.
Good point.
You know what I mean?
Very
So
good point.
I would love them the same way.
Yeah.
And that's just me. I am fortunate that I think in this country, as opposed to some Caribbean nations, there are laws that do not exist at all in some of those Caribbean nations. So therefore, it has forced those that might have been reluctant to accept it to do so, because if you hit somebody here, or if you somehow strike somebody, you're going to go to jail, as opposed to many Caribbean islands where people might just turn a blind eye to
violence.
To violence. So we got to be thankful that we live in a society where, if there are laws in place, and hopefully it will get better to protect those, from those kind of situations. So hopefully at some point, those Caribbean islands that are kind of backward in that will start to adopt some of these laws and pass some of these laws.
So here's my take, and I like to be real. I like to definitely be honest. And I grew up very sheltered. didn't grow up being around anyone that's gay or a lesbian.
Right.
Wasn't part of my world.
Exactly.
I grew up listening to all the music, so I didn't have to think about what if my kid came to me. I guess as I got older and I had that, then, you start to wonder, what if my kid comes to me? And I must say, yes, I would love my kids regardless, but it would not be that easy. It would be, I would start to think as a mom, what are my kids going to face? What challenges do they face?
Of course.
I'm not saying you're not saying that. I'm just saying it is not easy if my kid can, because then I would now, just like for this show, you start, and any topic we do, I start to think, do I know enough about this subject? Do I need to research it? So I think the same thing with my kids coming to me. I would have to educate myself a lot more. I would have to speak about it a lot more. Ask questions, because I want to be able to educate my kids as well and prepare them as much as possible
for what they have to face.
So that's why,
By
Kishi, for you, being of Caribbean descent, being of such a strong family, your sister is in the public eye. She's a beauty queen, beautiful young lady that represented Jamaica. Tell us what that transition was like. How did you feel having to tell your mom? Tell us about that journey.
Well, I will say that my coming out experience was not really entirely my own. At 5 years old, I go to elementary school and I'm being called a faggot every day at school just because I spoke. Well, in their words, I spoke like a white person. I was too friendly with girls. I was too nice. I thought I was better than everybody, and I had all of this to deal with at 5 years old. And, I went and told my mother, I was like, Mom, these kids are talking about me every day. And I did not want to go to school. I didn't like school. In middle school, I almost failed because my studies were failing because I had to deal with these immature guys. It was mostly African American, Caribbean American guys who are like just trying so hard to assert their macho masculinity, and impress everybody, and look at him, he's gay, and look at how he talks. It was dealing with that all the time. It was people who looked like me. I experienced homophobia before I ever experienced racism. So it's something that has been like, that's my reality. Right. And I did not like going to school. My family, all of my family knew that I was being made fun of. My sister went to the same school as me, as well as cousins, and my sister and cousins would constantly have to defend me. Constantly, because people would literally talk horrible things about me to them, and my friends would have to also defend me. And teachers would have to defend me. Like literally, it was a nightmare. I don't know how I made it through. I was extremely depressed. But I made it. But I wasn't the only one who went through this. A lot of people who identify as queer have gone through the same thing I have gone, no matter what their sexuality is, even if they were straight, but they just spoke a certain way. If they weren't your stereotypical straight macho male, like you were faced with so much criticism and unnecessary criticism. But it was their way of, like I said, that's what a lot of men, they were boys. A lot of boys tend to, in order to build themselves up and to assert, like, I am a man, they have to take someone else down to feel better about themselves. And I'm not the only one who went through it. There's lots and lots of people that have gone through it. That's why I'm glad there's a lot of initiatives on anti-bullying in schools, because you should go to school and feel safe. I never felt safe in school, ever. I don't even know. I wanted to leave school so much, but at the same time, I always told myself, you know what, this is my education, and why should I leave because of some ignorant people? I shouldn't leave. I made it through. I graduated. I did my thing, and I was still a very active and social person. I was a yearbook editor. I was a video yearbook editor. I was a soccer assistant. I was in chorus. I did so much.
Let me ask you something then.
Yeah.
What is it that you would say to everyone out there
Mhm.
that has to experience this? Because there are people that are still experiencing
Yeah.
this animosity, this adversity.
Yeah.
What is it that you would say to them that would help them through? You went through and you did everything like you should without any of this animosity holding you back in any
Yeah.
way. And I admire that.
Thank you.
That strength, that perseverance, oh my God, because not everyone can do
No.
that. So what would you say to everyone that's out there that's experiencing this very same animosity?
I would say to anyone dealing with what I dealt with, is to know your worth, know your value, and understand that there's a bigger purpose outside of those school walls for you. Because I thought school was everything. I thought if I were accepted and if everyone was my friend, that my life would be great. But the truth is that after school, there's a whole life waiting for you. But while you're in school, you need to focus on yourself. You need to focus on like establishing a thick skin. Because even if it's not your sexuality, kids are bullies and they're gonna talk negatively about you. You have to be focused, and you have to study, and you have to find an activity that you love, that you're very passionate about. For me, oh my God, what really kept me out of trouble was music. Like I would go to like United Fest, I would go to Miami Carnival, I would watch Bollywood movies, I would watch reggaeton videos. Like that was my escape. Like when I wasn't at school, I was learning about like I was like I only listened to Caribbean music when I was in high school.
Awesome.
That really was what
Yeah.
helped me. Like just like Daddy Yankee and
Yeah.
all of those people back when I was in high school, like
Yeah.
listening to them and learning about different cultures and immersing myself in culture. That's really what kept me going. And I know a lot of kids who are in school now that I've mentored that are dealing with bullying. They do that same thing. They find a talent or a craft and they work at it and they work at it and they put themselves into their studies. I wish I had better grades. Like, I mean, I did my best. I passed, but you know, the bullying really did affect my academics, and I made it through though. And hurting yourself is not a solution. I know a lot of kids that like have cut themselves or have like planned to commit suicide. Or hurt others, take it out on others, and it's not cool. Like self-harm and hurting someone else, it's not a solution. There was one point in high school where I was like lashing out. I was like throwing shoes, throwing books, throwing chairs, cursing people out, waiting for. I wanted people to fight me because I was like, listen, I'm sick. Y'all have been calling me a faggot since I was in kindergarten. I'll show you what a faggot can do. Try me. I'm from Brooklyn. I don't play. I'm ready. I'm here. What's up? Let's go. You have so much to say about me, and it was people who didn't even know me. I was like, well, let's go then. Let's do it. But that is not what I would recommend. I would not recommend that. I recommend self-defense. But you can defend yourself by being successful. You can defend yourself by being smarter than them and not falling for the crap. You don't have to fight back, but you should defend yourself. You should stand up for yourself and don't victimize yourself. Don't internalize it. I did. I thought they were right. I thought everything they said about me was right. I hated myself. I didn't date. I was just like, I just wanted to get through and be done with school because I hated those people. I hated them.
I think to some degree, even if you have your parental support, and you're going through it, you just feel like no one else understands what you're going through. And I know kids say that all the time. And in fact, my child has told me, you know, we told her she was tall and beautiful and, you know, it was just her coming to terms with who she was and realizing, like you said, there's so much more after middle school and high school and college. I think at times we don't even want to be adults anymore. We want to go back and redo those years.
Because there were no bills or whatever, so I guess we want to go back sometimes.